In the vast Roman Empire of the 1st century BCE, society was deeply stratified, with a small elite of wealthy landowners and political rulers at the top, and a vast underclass of enslaved people at the bottom. The foundation of Roman prosperity was built on the backs of slaves, who performed nearly every form of manual labor in the empire, from tending crops to building monumental structures, from working in the mines to fighting as gladiators. The Roman economy was fueled by this enormous workforce, yet its society was marked by brutality and oppression toward those who had no rights, no hope, and no escape from their subjugated condition. Amid this backdrop of widespread suffering, a rebellion emerged that would shake the Roman Empire to its core: the Spartacus Rebellion. The man at the heart of this revolt was Spartacus, a name that would be etched into history as a symbol of resistance and defiance. Spartacus was a Thracian, born in a region north of Greece, and likely had once been a free warrior in his homeland. Like many others, he was captured during Rome's military campaigns, enslaved, and eventually sold to a gladiatorial training school in Capua. Here, he was forced to fight for his life, not on the battlefield as a soldier, but in the blood-soaked sands of the gladiatorial arenas, where slaves and criminals were made to kill each other for the entertainment of Roman citizens. The gladiator fights were a cruel spectacle, glorifying violence and reinforcing the idea that human life, particularly the lives of slaves, was disposable.
It was in this world of death and violence that Spartacus found himself, a slave destined to kill or be killed. But unlike most gladiators, Spartacus was not content to merely survive. His mind burned with a desire for freedom, not just for himself, but for all those who suffered under the oppressive yoke of Roman slavery. Spartacus's ambition and leadership would soon transform him from a gladiator into the leader of the largest and most significant slave revolt in Roman history. The revolt began in 73 BCE, when Spartacus, along with approximately 70 other gladiators, managed to escape from the gladiator school in Capua. The escape itself was a daring and audacious act, requiring careful planning and bold execution. Armed with kitchen knives and other makeshift weapons, the gladiators overpowered their guards and fled into the countryside. Once free, Spartacus and his followers raided nearby estates, acquiring better weapons and supplies. This small group of fugitives quickly grew as slaves from across the region joined their cause, swelling the ranks of Spartacus's army to thousands. What began as a small-scale escape quickly escalated into a full-blown rebellion. The Roman authorities, initially underestimating the seriousness of the revolt, sent a modest force to suppress the rebellion. However, Spartacus, with his military experience and keen tactical mind, led his forces to a series of stunning victories. The Romans were unprepared for the disciplined and highly motivated army that Spartacus had assembled. His forces, consisting mainly of slaves and gladiators, fought not only for survival but for the promise of freedom, a cause that gave them an intensity and resolve that the Roman soldiers could not match. Spartacus's army grew as more and more slaves heard of the rebellion and flocked to join the ranks. By some estimates, his army eventually swelled to over 100,000 men, women, and children. This was not merely a group of escaped slaves. It was a multi-ethnic, multinational force united by a common desire to overthrow the chains of slavery and challenge the might of the Roman Republic. Spartacus, though not a Roman by birth, demonstrated remarkable leadership and organizational skills. He imposed discipline on his forces and ensured that his army functioned more like a well-structured military unit than a ragtag band of fugitives. Over the course of 2 years, Spartacus's rebellion spread across southern Italy. His army defeated multiple Roman legions, humbling the might of Rome and revealing the vulnerabilities of its military. The Roman Senate, alarmed by the scope of the rebellion, realized that Spartacus posed a serious threat not only to the social order, but to the stability of the Republic itself. For the first time in Roman history, an army of slaves was on the verge of toppling the very structures of power that had long oppressed them. Despite his military successes, Spartacus's goal was not to conquer Rome or destroy the Republic. His objective was more personal and fundamental: freedom. Spartacus aimed to lead his followers out of Italy, beyond the reach of Roman power. He envisioned escaping over the Alps, where they could find refuge in their homelands, far from the tyranny of Roman rule. But as they moved north, divisions within the ranks began to appear. While Spartacus himself remained focused on his goal of leading the slaves to safety, many of his followers were reluctant to leave Italy. Some were emboldened by their victories and sought to continue raiding Roman estates, looting the wealthy and enjoying their newfound freedom. This internal discord weakened the cohesion of Spartacus's forces at a critical moment in the rebellion. Rome, meanwhile, was not willing to allow such a rebellion to go unpunished. The Roman Senate, humiliated by the continued defeats of its legions, turned to Marcus Licinius Crassus, one of the wealthiest and most ambitious men in Rome, to crush the rebellion once and for all. Crassus was a shrewd and ruthless commander, known for his strict discipline and his willingness to employ brutal tactics to achieve victory. One of his most infamous measures was the use of decimation, a form of punishment in which 1 out of every 10 soldiers in a failing Roman unit was executed by their comrades as a way of instilling fear and ensuring discipline. Crassus was determined not to repeat the mistakes of his predecessors and took no chances in his campaign against Spartacus. Crassus pursued Spartacus relentlessly, eventually forcing the rebel army southward, away from the Alps and toward the southern coast of Italy. In a final desperate move, Spartacus sought to secure passage across the sea to Sicily, where he hoped to continue the fight. However, his plans were thwarted when the pirates he had hoped would ferry his forces across the water betrayed him. Trapped in southern Italy, Spartacus and his army prepared for a final showdown with Crassus's forces. The decisive battle took place in 71 BCE near the river Salaris. Spartacus, understanding that this was the end, reportedly killed his own horse before the battle, declaring that if they won, they would have all the horses they needed, and if they lost, he would not need one. Spartacus led his forces into battle with unmatched courage, knowing that the odds were against them. The rebel army fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outmatched by Crassus's legions. Spartacus himself is believed to have died in the thick of the fighting, though his body was never found. The rebellion was crushed and the aftermath was brutal. Crassus ordered the crucifixion of over 6,000 captured rebels, lining the Appian Way, the road leading to Rome, with their bodies. This gruesome spectacle was intended to serve as a warning to anyone who might dare to challenge the authority of Rome. The bodies of Spartacus's followers hung on crosses for miles, a chilling reminder of the price of defiance in a society that thrived on domination and control. Though the rebellion ended in defeat, the legacy of Spartacus lived on. His revolt was the largest and most successful slave uprising in Roman history, and it exposed the deep cracks in the foundations of Roman society. Spartacus's rebellion challenged the social and political order of the Republic and revealed the moral hypocrisy of a system that proclaimed itself to be the pinnacle of civilization while relying on the exploitation and dehumanization of millions of people. For the enslaved and the oppressed, Spartacus became a symbol of resistance, a beacon of hope that even in the darkest of circumstances, the human spirit could rise up and fight for freedom. His name would be remembered not as a mere gladiator, but as a hero who dared to defy the mightiest empire of the ancient world. In the centuries that followed, Spartacus's story would inspire countless movements and revolts against tyranny and oppression, from slave rebellions in later empires to modern struggles for human rights and justice. The Spartacus Rebellion serves as a timeless reminder of the power of the oppressed to challenge their oppressors. Though he was ultimately defeated, Spartacus's rebellion was a turning point in the history of Rome and a lasting symbol of the universal human yearning for freedom and dignity. His struggle resonates to this day, reminding us that the fight for justice and equality is never over, and that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the desire for freedom cannot be extinguished.